Hi, my name is Alessio Ferrari. I'm a research associate at the Laboratory of Soil Mechanics here at EDPFL. I'm lecturer for the course of slope stability, and landslides are among my main research interests. In this video, we will talk about landslide hazards. In particular, we will discuss about what a landslide is. We will discuss the main features, briefly mention the impacts of landslides, and finally, we will summarize the main points. Many definitions exist for the concept of landslide. Here we will refer to the definition proposed by Cruden, which defines a landslide as the movement of a mass of rock, debris, or earth down a slope. Mass movements occur mainly under gravitational forces, in some cases also under dynamic input. And the movement occurs as a consequence of a failure. Usually it's a shear failure at the boundary between the mass which moves and the material which remains in place. This generic definition includes a large variety of phenomena. From the fall of a single rock block with punctual, even if potentially dramatic consequences, to a complete failure of an entire hill with very serious dramatic consequences. Each landslide phenomenon has its peculiar features that are mainly controlled by factors like geology, hydrogeology, topography, the geotechnical properties of the involved materials, and climate. Each landslide behaves very differently, both during the failure phase and the post-failure phase. This variety of phenomena and behaviors yields, from one side, to the need for a proper terminology to be used consistently by all the persons involved, especially considering the number of different actors involved in landslide management, from technicians and scientists to politicians, stakeholders that have to take decisions. From the other side, this variety of phenomena brings the need for a system of classification of landslides with the aims of identify general types of movements and synthesize the main characteristics of the movements, both spatially and temporally. In this video, we will refer to the document produced by International Geotechnical Society, UNESCO Working Party for Landslide Inventory, that was produced in 1993. In this document, you will find a comprehensive glossary and a classification system for landslide, and you are all encouraged to refer to that document for a complete overview of the terms for a proper description of a landslide. This is an example of the terms which define both the main features and the dimensions of a landslide. It refers to the particular case of a sliding mass which remains in contact with the underneath material. This is what we call a rotational slide. The main features that characterize this type of movement are the surface of rupture, which is where the differential movements between the moving mass and the mass which remain in place concentrates, the zone of accumulation, that is the zone where the moving mass accumulates, the main body, which is representing the entire moving mass, the toe, which is the most elongated part of the main body, and the main scarp, which is the exposed part of the surface of rupture that we can see after the movement took place. The length, the depth, and the width characterize the dimensions of this landslide. The rotational slide we have just seen is one of the possible landslide types that we can observe. This figure reports the main types, which are mainly distinguished considering the material involved, rock, debris, earth, mud, and the type of movement, fall, topple, avalanche, slide, flow, spread. Certain characteristics can be somehow anticipated by looking at the type of involved material and the geometry of the system. Rotational landslides will occur mainly when we have a system composed by an homogeneous material. Translational slide is occurring when we have some discontinuities in our systems. A block slide is a kind of a translational slide in which the material remains in the form of a block during the movement. Rockfalls will occur when the material is exposed to the air in the underneath part, and the movement will occur predominantly through the air. A topple is expected when the material is free to rotate during the movement. Debris flow, avalanche, airflow are movements that can travel for several hundred meters, even kilometers, and they can have very different velocities depending on the type of material which is involved. Creeps are movements that are occurring essentially under constant stress conditions, and the lateral spreads are lateral movements which occur mainly when we have a hard material sitting on a softer material. As a part of the classification of a landslide, it is crucial that we define the state of activity. We will call active a landslide which is moving during the time in which we are analyzing the system. We say that the landslide is suspended if it was active and now it is not moving, but the movement could start again in the near future. A reactivated landslide, it was a landslide that was suspended and now has started to move again. Inactive landslides could be dormant, abandoned. They could be stabilized if we have done something to prevent any further movement to occur, or it could be relict if so long time has passed that movements are not likely to occur anymore. Distribution is part of the classification system for a landslide. When we talk about distribution, we refer to the spatial evolution of the movements. The style refers to the number of movements that are occurring in the system that we are analyzing. If we have just one type of movement, we will say that we have a single landslide. If this type of movement is occurring in the same slope but in different location without sharing the surface of rupture, we will say that the style of activity is successive. A multiple style of activity is the case in which the same type of movements is happening in different over-related part of the slope. A complex style is the case in which we have different types of movements which are happening in the same portion of the slope we are analyzing, while composite is the case where we have different types but located in different portions of the slope. Let's briefly talk about landslide impact. It is quite obvious to think that mountain and hilly regions and coastlines where we find natural slopes are the areas most exposed to landslides. But we don't have to neglect the risks related to man-made slopes, such as dams, cut-in fields, and tailing dams. Depending on the objects which are exposed to the landslides, landslide may cause fatalities, damages to infrastructures, or to properties. Let's summarize the main points that we have discussed in this video. Landslides are defined as movements of rocks, debris, or earth which are happening mostly under gravitational forces, but they could be also induced by earthquakes. Landslides are classified according to their type, state of activity, distribution, and style. We have discussed about the need for a proper terminology to describe and characterize a given landslide. This is mainly due to the number of actors which are participating in the management of a problem of a landslide. Those are very complex phenomena which present a large variety of features and they can have really potential destructive impact.